Okay, in this video we're going to be looking at replacing an outer tie rod end on a 2007 Ford 500. So pretty simple tool list here. The first thing that you should do is use a penetrant liquid wrench, or I like Croyle. You're also going to need a 10mm wrench. If you have a 21mm wrench, then that would be even easier, but I'm just going to use a couple of crescent wrenches here because I don't happen to have a 21mm wrench. You're going to need a grease gun, and then I'm also using a Mevotech tie rod end. These tie rod ends come somewhat pre-greased, and I did contact Mevotech because it wasn't clear, there were no instructions in here, and they did confirm that these are not ready for service in terms of grease from the factory, so we are going to have to add grease to this before we complete the job. You can see one of the things I like about this aftermarket Mevotech tie rod end is it does come with a Zerk fitting so that we can add grease as part of our regular maintenance. So let's go ahead, and first thing we're going to do is soak the tie rod end with some penetrant and let that sit for a little while, and then we will come back and actually start the project. So this is the original tie rod end, the OEM tie rod end. This vehicle has about 125,000 miles on it. Two spots that I want to hit with the penetrant is the nut here on the outer tie rod end on this shaft, and then also we're going to hit the nut here. We're going to let that sit for 10-15 minutes, and then we'll come back and go ahead and disassemble this. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is, while this is still attached, we're going to go ahead and try and break this free. I sprayed it about 15 minutes ago with some penetrating oil. I'm going to go ahead and put 2 wrenches on here. Again, this is, I believe, a 21mm. I'm not 100% sure on that. I didn't have a wrench big enough for that, so I'm just using crescent wrenches. But hopefully with the penetrating oil, this will break free. And it did. So I'm just going to loosen that just a tad. And the reason for that is we want that to pretty much stay in position where it is right now, so when we put on the new tie rod end, we will take this vehicle in, or I'll take it in for an alignment afterwards, but we want to get it pretty close. So I'm also going to probably mark that with, since it's wet, probably some tape, just so that I know where that was. Next step is to break this, the actual ball joint here loose. So again, I'm going to use the crescent wrench for that. You could also use an impact wrench if you wanted to. This is a 21mm. You could use an impact to loosen it if this doesn't break free. We may end up doing that. But actually this one came loose pretty nicely. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to loosen that up, and then once we get this fully loosened and broke free, then we'll come back and finish removing it. Okay, so we've got this loose, and I've also put some tape on there. That tape's not staying, so it's not sticking, so I'm just going to go ahead and also put a set of vice grips on there to kind of lock that in place. And one other tool that we're going to use that I didn't mention in the beginning is a ball joint separator to be able to, now that I've got this loosened, easily break this out. If you don't have one of these, then you could simply leave the nut there and also use a hammer to be able to pound that loose. But I'm going to go ahead and use this since it's a little bit easier and purpose built.